I am Charles Stuart, King of England, Scotland, and Ireland, anointed in 1625 following the death of my beloved father, James I. Mine has been a reign fraught with challenges, controversies, and, ultimately, a tragic end. Allow me to recount my story, one of faith, duty, and the burdens of sovereignty. When I ascended the throne, England faced deep religious and political divisions. I held steadfastly to the belief in the divine right of kings, that my authority was granted by God, not subject to the whims of Parliament. This belief guided my every decision, though it became the very foundation of my undoing. In the early years of my reign, I sought to consolidate power and restore the grandeur of the monarchy. My marriage to Henrietta Maria, a French Catholic princess, was a union of state but also one of love. Yet, her faith stoked fears of Catholic influence, sowing distrust among my Protestant subjects. My attempts to enforce religious uniformity, particularly through the introduction of the Book of Common Prayer in Scotland, met with fierce resistance. The Scots rebelled in what became known as the Bishops' Wars, an omen of the turmoil to come. Financial strains plagued my reign. Parliament refused to grant me adequate funds, forcing me to resort to unpopular measures such as ship money and forced loans. These actions deepened the rift between Crown and Parliament. In 1629, exasperated by their defiance, I dissolved Parliament and embarked on what became known as the personal rule. For 11 years, I governed without their interference, relying on my council and prerogative powers. Though this period brought stability, it bred resentment and mistrust. By 1640, my need for funds to suppress the Scottish rebellion forced me to recall Parliament. However, their demands for reform were relentless. The Long Parliament, led by men like John Pym, sought to curtail my authority. When I attempted to arrest 5 members in 1642, their escape humiliated me and marked the beginning of open conflict. The English Civil War erupted, dividing my kingdom between royalists, who supported the crown, and parliamentarians, who sought to limit its power. I took to the battlefield, leading my loyal supporters in defense of monarchy and tradition. Yet, the war dragged on, and despite some victories, my forces were ultimately overwhelmed. In 1646, I surrendered to the Scots, hoping for leniency, but they handed me over to Parliament. My captivity was a humiliation, but I remained resolute. Negotiations with various factions ensued, but my refusal to compromise my principles prolonged the conflict. By 1648, the Second Civil War had erupted, sealing my fate. In January 1649, I was put on trial for treason, accused of waging war against my own people. The court, a mockery of justice, claimed that a king was not above the law. I refused to recognize their authority, maintaining that a monarch was accountable only to God. Despite my protests, I was condemned to death. On the morning of January 30, 1649, I faced my execution with calm dignity. I wore 2 shirts to prevent shivering in the cold, lest my enemies mistake it for fear. As I stepped onto the scaffold at Whitehall, I declared, "I die a faithful man of the Church of England." The axe fell, and my reign ended in blood, leaving my kingdom in turmoil. Though my life was cut short, I remained steadfast in my belief that I acted in accordance with my conscience and the will of God. My martyrdom, as I see it, serves as a reminder of the sacred bond between a sovereign and his people, a bond that, once broken, leaves only chaos in its wake. Thus, my legacy endures, a cautionary tale of power, faith, and the perils of uncompromising conviction.